What's up, folks? David here, TexasHornsFans.com. We're going to just take a quick look at the depth chart that was released yesterday heading into the Louisiana game. We'll just look at compare that to the position-by-position projections that I did here on this channel leading into the season, and we'll also just look at some surprises, but definitely drop your comments below to let me know what you think about how you thought that this thing would shake out and what surprises you the most. All right, so instead of looking at the depth chart image, which can be kind of fuzzy when you zoom in, I'm just going to go down the list here from the post by 24/7 Sports. So starting with the offense, quarterback, no surprise once the word started to get out that Hudson Card was working more and more with the first team offense, especially just really up until the last week. So Hudson Card, redshirt freshman, starting quarterback over Casey Thompson, redshirt junior, who's going into his fourth year. So we talked about this obviously when we looked at the position-by-position previews and breakdowns. I projected Casey as the starter. Of course, this was a few weeks ago, but either way, I'm not surprised. I think through the spring game, they were kind of balanced out. It was kind of a push. Both did some good things. Both did some bad things. So it just seemed like Hudson Card emerged more, I think, as a better passer and as somebody who showed that he can protect the ball more. Now, he's also kind of showed that he'll take some bad sacks, right? He does a little bit too much in the pocket, and maybe he doesn't have as good of pocket awareness, pocket presence as Casey. So, either way, I'm not surprised. I just hope that there's not a quarterback carousel like Chris Sims' Major Applewhite era. Word is that Casey is going to get some snaps in week 1 against Louisiana, so hopefully that's just kind of a situational thing and not a, hey, we now have to give Casey a couple of drives because that's what we said we were going to do. Because to me, that just goes back to Tom Herman era strategy. But going down, running back, obviously no surprise there. Bijan is going to get the start. Coach Sark has said on a couple of occasions in press conferences that ideally he would like to see Bijan get around 20 to 25 touches a game. But of course, how that game goes determines how many touches he's actually going to get. I certainly don't want him to be overworked. He easily could, by the end of the season, start creeping close to 300 touches a game, or 300 touches for the entire season, which is a pretty big workload. Luckily, I think this room has a lot of depth and a lot of versatility. I love Roschon Johnson as a change of pace, downhill, bruising, tough runner to come in to spell Bijan, or just in certain situations where Roschon Johnson should be in there. And then the transfer from Alabama, Keelan Robinson, he's the speed guy. I would love to see how they're going to plan on getting him in the open field, maybe with a couple of passes a game. Jonathan Brooks, the true freshman, I wouldn't expect to see much of him this season at all. Maybe a little bit early in the season, but I almost hope that we don't see much of him, but a lot of good stuff coming out of fall camp from him. A lot of high praise from the players. Now, the wide receivers, this was the most interesting group of the offense for me. If you watched the position-by-position previews and breakdowns, this is exactly my 3 starters at receiver that I projected. Xavier Worthy, true freshman, Jordan Whittington, and Josh Moore. Now, I'm assuming that this group here with Worthy, Calvante Dixon, and Troy O'Meary, I'm going to assume that is an outside receiver spot, and that Whittington, Woodard, and Kai Money are more of a slot position. However, I thought it was going to be the exact opposite. I thought Whittington and Moore were going to get more time at the outside receiver spots. Worthy was going to kind of be there in the middle. And maybe that's still the case. Maybe I'm looking at this wrong. If you guys have gotten any other confirmation on that, drop it in the comments or drop a link in the comments. But I know Kai Money is more. He's more of a slot guy, right? Whittington and Jake Smith obviously were in more of an inside slot last year. So this group here to me seems more of a slot group. Now Worthy is obviously the speedster, and that's kind of what you want on the outside. Sark has said over and over again that he wants this offense to be centered around Bijan, play action pass, and kill him deep. So I'm assuming that Moore and Worthy, the two more speed guys, are on the outside. And also looking at Cavante Dixon and Troy O'Meary, I don't really see them as slot receivers either. So, but yeah, obviously the big news with this is that true freshman Xavier Worthy is getting a starting nod in week 1. So no doubt the hype on him in fall was legit, because the coaches are putting their money where their mouth is and starting a true freshman, which is cool. So that gives you a redshirt freshman at quarterback and one true freshman at wide receiver. So that's going to be interesting. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about that speed on the outside. And then backing up Josh Moore, the depth with Marcus Washington, and then Casey Kane, freshman. That was pretty interesting to me, just to even have his name in that top 3 depth chart. So, Marcus Washington's not. Oh yeah, there he is. Never mind. I just glazed over his name again. So yeah, it's obviously this offense is going for speed at receiver, route running ability, a lot like what we've seen from the Alabama receivers. The big bodied receivers that Tom Herman liked. This group here and this philosophy here is really going away from that. Tight end, no surprise here. Senior Cade Brewer, seems like he's been in the program for about 7 years. Jared Wiley, the tall, perfect kind of tight end specimen, and then freshman Gunnar Helm is getting in there. I saw some posts on Facebook about where's Sanders, the true freshman. I wouldn't expect to see him much at all this year anyway, and it's a pretty deep tight end room that he's kind of projected to be working with. He is kind of a big body type of receiver. He played offense and defense in high school. So I'm just not surprised to not see him in this list of 3 receivers. Jared Wiley, I think, has all the talent in the world to be the guy among that group, but we've seen him drop passes. His blocking can be an issue. But then again, how many tight end sets are we going to see in this offense? We still don't know yet. The offensive line turned out pretty much exactly the way I thought. You got Christian Jones at left tackle. Obviously, he's the 3rd starting left tackle in as many years after our left tackles have been going to the NFL over the past 2 years. So Christian Jones, sophomore left tackle. Denzel Okafor, senior at left guard. Jake Majors, no surprise, at center. He seems to be even though he's a redshirt freshman, he's kind of already the star among this group, which is really the most important position on the line anyway. Right guard, Junior Angular Jr., and then Derek Kirksetter coming back from his injury toward the end of last season, starting at right tackle. So I like that group. It gives me a lot of confidence. Hayden Connor is probably the next most interesting backup to me among this group, even though he's listed here backing up Kirksetter at right tackle. Wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe move to one of the guard positions. I just think with him, he's kind of the guy that most fans are pretty high on and kind of itching to see what he's got. But decent depth I think, among the line, just in terms of the young guys. But man, the more biggins we can get in there, the better. I just hope that unit stays intact and that we don't see a bunch of rotations going on. Defensive tackles, Keandre Coburn, obviously, he's one of the captains, one of the top representatives. Tavondre Sweat's backing him up, and the big-time freshman Byron Murphy, who's gotten a ton of praise all throughout fall camp. I wouldn't be surprised to start to see him more and more, even at the other tackle spot. But Morio Ojomo, the other starting tackle, and then Vernon Broughton, the redshirt freshman, backing him up. I love this depth at defensive tackle. I wouldn't even be surprised to see, maybe Sweat or Murphy moving and getting some time at the other position. But there's a lot of depth there. Love to see it, especially if, the starters need a little bit of a breather. And if you can stick these type of guys in there, man, that's awesome. I still think, and I said this on the position previews and breakdowns, if you haven't watched those, go down the channel and watch them. But I said that I thought this was the strongest unit on the team, and I still feel that way. Really the whole defensive line, not just the tackles. So here we are at edge, basically kind of that traditional defensive end, what used to be called defensive end, on the outside. At the jack position, Jacoby Jones, senior. I thought he looked great in the spring game. He really stood out to me. And then the guy that I think everybody is super high on, Alfred Collins, backing him up at jack. I thought Alfred Collins would get a start at one of the defensive tackle positions, but he does have, I think, that kind of hybrid length body style to play more on the outside, or more the inside. So maybe this is a little bit more of seeing where his strengths truly are, but wouldn't be surprised if we see him get more and more snaps as the season goes on. But I feel really confident about Jacoby Jones there. But again, great depth. The buck position is, and I'm a little confused at this point on what this one, like last year, the jack position was the Joseph Osai position, sort of that backside QB pressure position. So Ray Thornton, the transfer from LSU, who a lot of players are really excited about, not just in what he brings in ability, but leadership as well. He obviously was on the national championship team, is solidifying that position. He's also wearing Joseph Osai's number, which is pretty funny, and he kind of looks like Joseph Osai in uniform, just in terms of their body style, really. But I absolutely love this from top to bottom. Colburn, Sweat, Murphy, Ojomo, Broughton, Jacoby Jones, Alfred Collins, Ray Thornton. Man, that's gonna be so cool. It's gonna be fun to see some of the younger guys get time. Linebacker, I think, is the most interesting group to me. It's maybe the biggest head scratcher outside of DeMarvion Overshown. But Luke Brockemeyer, surprise, getting the start in the middle. Yeah, I mean, this position produced the top tackler on the team last year, so it's obviously super important. These are the guys that have to cover. These are the guys that have to stuff the run, and you really have to read and react. So, really cool to see Luke Brockmeyer get a start there with his work ethic, and then Jalen Ford. That's cool to see. Obviously, we saw him a little bit stepping up toward the end of last season, so I like that kind of 1-2 punch there. No surprise that Overshown, starting at the weak side linebacker, he obviously has put in a ridiculous amount of work to get better with the shoulder and moving over from safety to outside linebacker last year. So now he actually has a full season under his belt at linebacker, and a full off season knowing which position he's preparing for. So he's put in, I think, kind of like double that work, right, to overcome the shoulder injury and to really solidify his move to outside linebacker. But he's obviously the senior leader there. David Benda backing him up, and Delio Deaway, who was going to transfer and now back. And then remember Marcus Tillman, who's still there too. I think it's just kind of a matter of him not being able to kind of overcome just the depth here. Linebacker was a pretty shallow group, lacking in depth, I think, just back in the spring, and it's kind of all of a sudden become a pretty deep group. And then I think the surprise of the whole depth chart is the Notre Dame transfer, and I can never say his name right, Ovi Ogofu, transferring from Notre Dame, getting the start at strong side linebacker over the Alabama transfer, Ben Davis. And then obviously the exciting freshman Terrence Cooks there is ranked 3, true freshman Terrence Cooks. So you've got 2 transfers, one from Notre Dame, one from Alabama, there at strong side linebacker. So that's pretty interesting to me. And then obviously if you go back to that line, you've got Ray Thornton starting at one of the outside sort of defensive end positions. So that's 2 transfers starting on your defense. Obviously you don't necessarily want that or want to rely on that, but it's cool to see that those guys have come in and really earned themselves a spot with a new coaching staff that's going to be completely blank slate, right? It's not like this coaching staff has ties to David Bender or Delio Deaway. So, and I honestly haven't heard a lot of specifics about this guy in terms of what he has really shown in practices. But that's pretty interesting. That's kind of the surprise. I think this is the least surprising group here, the DBs. Obviously, senior Shark Jameson, preseason All Big 12, getting the start at corner, and Josh Thompson, former safety who came over to cornerback last year, getting the start at the other corner. Juddy Barron, don't really know much about him. Haven't heard his name come up a lot. I have heard a lot of Jameer Johnson, who some people were kind of projecting that he might get a start at nickelback, but he is number 3 here in the depth chart. Transfer Darian Dunn is for now backing up Josh Thompson. Keaton Crawford also there in the mix, but Dunn's a senior. He's got a lot of experience, a lot of snaps under his belt. This is his third school. So yeah, really confident about these guys. I said in the position preview video that we did that the youth excuse is gone now with this group. Remember a couple years ago, the excuse was all about, oh, they're so young and they're still trying to figure things out. They're still trying to, get some snaps under their belt. That's out the window. You got 2 experienced seniors starting at cornerback. All right, the safeties. Pretty surprised to see Brendan Schooler get the free safety or the field safety, the one that moves around a little bit more at the start. 24/7 here has Brendan Schooler or Jarian Thompson at the field safety position. I read the depth chart as Brendan Schooler was more the solidified number 1. Now, obviously that's really interesting because Schooler was a receiver last year. He has played defensive back in college before transferring to Texas, but played receiver last year, transfers over to safety this year. So that's pretty interesting to me, but it is cool that obviously he's got the natural ability to make that transition and earn a starting spot in his senior season. I kind of almost wish that we would have had some solidified defensive backs at safety starting and not have to stick a former receiver in there. But hey, Schooler brings a lot of toughness. There's no doubt. J.D. Coffey, the true freshman, providing the depth at field safety. And then boundary safety, more the strong safety. No surprise there. Senior B.J. Foster, former 5-star recruit, who's had his ups and downs over the past few years, but he's also dealt with a lot of injuries. He's had some shoulder injuries, but the guy is absolutely fearless. He's not afraid to come up and just absolutely blow up a running back. He's not afraid to go one-on-one, but you got to have a lot of confidence with senior B.J. Foster, senior Deshaun Jameson, and senior Josh Thompson back here. Chris Adamora and Tyler Owens, who have, they've had their time in the program. I really liked Chris Adamora toward the end of last year. It also seemed like he kind of bulked up a little bit. Tyler Owens has kind of floated around here for a while. I don't know if he's ever going to end up actually being a starting safety on this team. Maybe next year, I don't know. But really like that group too. So a ton of confidence to me in the defensive line. Kind of a head scratcher at linebacker outside of Overshone. I love Overshone as a team leader. I really hope that he's one of the team captains throughout the season. And we kind of got word that it's going to kind of be a week-to-week team captain. So it seems like that they're going to choose different team captains every week, which is going to be interesting. And then kind of the nickelback position, the 5th defensive back, Anthony Cook, another senior who's been around here for a while. There's been a lot of word throughout fall camp that he's really, really stepped up and improved a ton. And then Jerian Thompson, obviously he's kind of a floater defensive back. And then Chris Adamora providing some depth there. So really confident in this group just in terms of their experience. We just got to see them actually keep the play in front of them, not make a lot of out of place alignments where they're running around chasing receivers. I just think we saw a ton of that last year. And then just a real quick look at the specialists. You got another senior. Our little baby-faced Cameron Dicker is already a senior in the blink of an eye, but he's obviously a solid place kicker. And we've also got him at punter here, but depending on how Ryan Buchevsky heals, we'll see that. And then Hudson Card is going to be holding the kicks, which is important. Deep snapper, no surprise here. Deshaun Jameson coming back. He's good for one kick return for a touchdown every year. And then Roshan Johnson and Xavier Worthy. I said this in the position previews for the special teams. Not to be surprised if Xavier Worthy gets back there and gets some chances to return a few kicks with his speed. So he's listed number 2 here behind Shark Jameson as punt returner. So I'm definitely not going to be surprised if we see Worthy return some kicks. So super excited, obviously, guys. Let me know what you think about the depth chart. Any surprises that you've seen? Anybody that you think should not be starting? But those are kind of what stood out to me. More surprises on defense for me than on offense. But, obviously we'll see how it goes. I'm liking the depth more this year than I thought we were going to have, kind of back in the spring. But, it's it's going to be interesting to see which ones actually work out. I think there's some stuff to work out at receiver, at linebacker, and we're going to see. We're going to figure it out here pretty quickly. Hopefully they get it figured out before conference play. But anyway, give the video a like, share it out, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any. We'll try to do as many game reviews as we can, and then let me know what you think about the depth chart. And we will see you on the next video. We got 4 days to kick off as of this recording. Hook 'em.